Hi, Tiankai. Welcome to the WeChat Tech Podcast. How are you?
Hello, great to be here. I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Look, for all the listeners, that don't know who you are, it'd be great to, get a short intro on yourself first.
Absolutely. So I'm Tiankai. I'm currently working as a director for data and AI strategy at ThoughtWorks, which is a consultancy focusing on data and tech solutions. And I'm basically responsible for the different approaches and frameworks on how we solve strategic problems around data and AI. That includes like a typical data and AI strategy, but also governance, but also operating models, change management, etc., etc. Along my whole career, I was always passionate about the human side of data and AI, which is why I turned that passion into writing two books recently over the last few years called Humanizing Data Strategy and Humanizing AI Strategy. And I like to make data and AI a little bit more fun sometimes through music and memes and different jokes. And yeah, lots of public speaking as well. Before my ThoughtWorks career, I was also at Adidas working for 6 years before that. And there I was heading the product data governance team at the end and had various data roles too. So I'd always like to say I saw the enterprise corporate side and the consultancy side, and I try to make my best now to help my clients and my colleagues basically to solve these kind of issues. Yeah.
Awesome. I mean, you've had a very impressive career, and obviously you do some amazing stuff in the scene as well. Especially with the data and AI front, and
Mm-hmm.
we'll definitely explore things further with the books that you've wrote, and I guess the whole I guess the approach that you're trying to push as well. So
Mm-hmm.
today's podcast is very much going to be obviously around data and AI, exploring the centric approach, which is a very much of, I guess, what your books are sort of approached around.
Mm-hmm.
And also for those that want to get into data and AI, understanding what sort of the best routes will be.
Right.
Um, but before we do that, it'd be good to sort of dive into your journey, I guess, and discuss more of like, I guess, how you got to where you are today. So I guess what made you get into sort of data first, I guess, exploring that side of things.
Yeah, it is actually a pretty linear journey when we talk about data and AI because I studied industrial engineering with a focus on marketing and database systems back in my university times. And without knowing that then, but that was the perfect combination to start my job and career in marketing analytics because it was basically combining my expertise in marketing and data together into analyzing the data and making better decisions, right? And marketing analytics was basically my starting point to see how we can actually turn data and analytics into business decisions. And on the marketing side, it was always for me very, I would say, tangible, right? So we would see how we would change creatives or we change the paid media part of it a little bit, or how we just do advertisement differently. And that would have a different impact that we could measure again. And I saw that, I think, very closely. But that was the starting point for me to also look beyond just that, right? So I then expanded into understanding business intelligence more on the commercial side, right? How do P&Ls work and how does financial reporting work, for example, when it relates to marketing? I also made more basically progress in understanding how we create reportings and become a data visualization expert in many ways too. And beyond all of that, I was very excited about data quality too, because I realized that with difficult data and bad data, we cannot really do anything about it. So I wanted to do more there. This is how I joined the data governance side as well. And from there, I had basically all these different disciplines that I had experienced, right? From a data science, data analytics, data governance, data strategy side. And now I'm bringing that all together, right? Of seeing the much bigger picture and being a data and AI strategist means that I'm looking basically at all the different areas that I had experiences on. And I'm seeing where the issues come from and where to actually put the solutions on as well.
Awesome. I mean, you literally touched on that point as well, which I was going to ask. I mean, you've touched on sort of a lot of areas within data, haven't you? I mean, you've been a
Yeah.
part of a lot of different roles and you've experienced a lot of different areas. I guess what drove the variety? What made you sort of, I guess, explore all the different areas within data?
That's a great question. I think that is just a personality trait I have where I cannot keep on doing the same thing for a long period of time, I would say. And that has always been me. Where even in my hobbies, I would always try to reinvent myself, right? I mean, I've been playing the piano, for example, since I was 5, but I've been part of so many different bands and genres now that I never want to stick to one genre too long, right? I mean, I was doing pop music, songwriting myself. Then I joined a rock band. Then I was part of an Elvis cover band. Then I joined a big band. Then I did a little bit orchestra. Then I led a choir in in Adidas, for example, and all these kind of things is always me building on my musical skills, but reinventing myself a little bit, right? And always believing in myself that I can now transfer the previous skills into this new thing that I've never done before. I have the same attitude towards data, right? With the knowledge of analytics and in marketing, I think I can use similar approaches on BI. From there, I can use similar approaches of the understanding again on understanding how data quality works, etc., etc., etc. So I think it has always been that kind of consciously building on what I already know to apply to a different thing, but also having the motivation and yeah, basically a passion to do more
Yeah, yeah.
things and different things.
Nice. I mean, we'll definitely touch on, I guess, the things you like, sort of, I guess, outside of work as well. But I mean, those who haven't watched your sort of performance on TEDx as well,
Mm,
um, definitely worth watching. It was awesome.
thank you.
Um, but I guess your, I guess, personality suits perfectly to the data and AI sort of front because
Mm,
it's constantly evolving, right? And it's
yeah,
perfect for someone like yourself where you just, I guess you're constantly like in something new and everything sort of changing, new services, new
right.
approaches, and yeah, I guess your personality definitely fits in with with the data and AI, sorry, AI side,
Yeah.
which is cool. I guess from your side, I mean, is there any sort of any lessons I guess you've learned the hard way from your journey? Would you say?
Yes, I do think that, I mean, there's a personal lesson, I think, a more business relevant lesson. The personal lesson for me was that I'm easily swayed to do many things at once. And that means it could be too many things all at once, right? That on top of what I already have to do, I have a lot of great ideas that I also want to do. And then I do everything in parallel, but that never ends well, right? That is like just starting everything, but not finishing anything. And that kind of, I think, I learned the hard way to be more diligent and disciplined about prioritizing and just knowing what is important at any given time to not do everything all at once, right? The other thing of it is, I think, to just always be close to the business, right? Never assume anything, but really listen and understand your collaborators and stakeholders before you make any decisions. Because in the end, being in data and AI always means you're enabling business objectives and business kind of goals, right? And if you just assume what is the right thing to do and don't talk to the people that are actually experts in it, it's 90% possible that it's most likely the wrong thing. And you were missing some big information that you just didn't know about. And I think that is key of anywhere that I start, no matter if it's a new job or a new project. I first talk to all the right people and just learn and understand before I think this is exactly the right way. And then that right way will be co-created with the stakeholders and collaborators, which is much more gratifying than actually do it on your own anyway.
For
Yeah,
sure,
those I
for
think would be
sure.
the key learnings.
Awesome. I mean, what we'll move on a little bit, I guess, to now is the the sort of the books that you've written and the author side of things, because obviously you've obviously had a very impressive career in sort of different areas of data, and now obviously you share a lot of your sort of, I guess, your thoughts more publicly.
Hmm.
So I guess what sort of led you to become an author, I guess, and writing, humanizing strategy and humanizing AI strategy? What made you sort of do it, I guess, and what inspired you to write your first book?
Right. I mean, I think the practical part of it is not that exciting because what happened was that I was translating a book from English to German for the German-speaking audience, called "Disrupting Data Governance" by Laura Madsen, and that went really well with the publisher and the author. So when that project finished, the publisher asked me if I wanted to write my own book as well. And that was actually when it first came to mind that it was even possible for me to write a book. And it was only because a publisher asked me if I wanted to write a book that I even had the idea that I should write a book or what it would be like to write a book. But I think to the other side of the question is, why did I write about that particular topic, right? And I think this is something that combines a lot of my experiences in life and at work to lead to what I think is meaningful to write about, right? And on the one hand side, I know that the human side, and I've experienced myself, the human side of data and AI being the biggest problem often, right? Either we ignore that people need change management and they need time to adapt to new things, or we paint it as the weakness of any strategy where people are unpredictable. So this is always the part that's gonna fall apart anyway. So we give up on them. But I feel like there was just more needed structure and actionable advice to actually deal with the people side of things. And that's what I wanted to write about. And for me personally, though, having been basically born and raised in Germany, but with Chinese heritage, always felt a little bit excluded, right? Meaning that I looked basically different than the rest, and that always had like initial bias. But even in China, I would be seen and very quickly as behaving and talking differently. So I was an outsider there too. So channeling all of that being outsider feelings into being more of an inclusive leader was what drove me really in my work as well. So I didn't want anyone else to feel that way around me, no matter if it's in personal environments or in work environments. So this having said, this is, I think, where it all came together, right? My motivation to be kind and empathetic and inclusive, plus knowing this is something that not a lot of literature exists about, but I know it's a big problem in that space. Hoping that when I write about this, I think people are gonna enjoy it and they will find it valuable. And very luckily, I think this is what happened, right? I mean, all the great feedback that I'm getting about those two books are exactly what I assumed it was, that everyone was struggling with the people side of it, and that someone finally wrote some actionable advice about it.
Awesome, awesome. I mean, that is very inspirational. I think in all means. I know you. It's when it's yours, it's very easy to almost like make it sound a little bit, less. I guess of an impact that you're making, but obviously
Right.
it's obviously very impressive with what you've done. I guess from
Thank you.
yourself. I mean, how did I guess writing change the way that you think about data and AI and just business in general? Has it changed your sort of thinking about that side of things?
Um, I guess in a way, yes. So, by writing long form text and not just a LinkedIn post or a blog article, right? You spend a lot more time with your own thoughts than like publishing it somewhere and just getting immediate feedback, right? And because of that, you go through ideas and concepts multiple times in your head before anyone even hears or sees, reads about it. And that I think has been a really big moment of reflection writing two books, where I was thinking a lot about everything that I did and multiple ideas that I had, but also things that I learned that I would think, huh, maybe it's not always the right thing to do. And all these kind of things that gave me basically new impulses to evaluate better what is right and what is wrong. And having all that reflection now basically happened in my head, I think I'm a more open-minded person that is more reflected as well, knowing in what situation I should think in what way, I would say. The other side of it, though, is also, especially when writing the second book with Humanizing AI Strategy, that the space of AI is changing so quickly and evolving so quickly that when writing that book, I basically had to make bets what the future will look like, right? We cannot talk about AI without assuming that it's going to go in a certain direction. And making predictions about how the future looks like and assuming that will be the truth is really tricky, right? Because who am I to say what the future will look like? And there's so many other smarter people that probably know how to predict the future better than I do. But I'm going to anyway give it a try and then talk about
Yeah.
the implications of it. And I think that is a general thing. Where do you find the balance between confidently predicting and being flexible enough to adjust if the future doesn't turn out the way that you think it would be? And this is generally, I think, a thing that I've been now learning and trying to apply in my day-to-day job as well.
Awesome, awesome. I guess before we move on, I guess what's the one idea from your books that you wish every sort of reader, I guess understands or takes away from it?
I think the one about what the risks are that we are not paying enough attention to is one thing. And I'm specifically addressing bias, disinformation, and sustainability, right? Bias because the paradox is the further we go back in time to grab all the historical data, the worse humanity has behaved, right? And we were not always nice to each other in the past, right? Meaning that the further we go back in time to let AI learn from it, the worse the behavior it's going to be amplifying and learning from, right? So why do we draw the line and how do we balance that? This information is because we know about hallucinations and we know about intentionally creating deep fakes and different real looking fake things. And it's just a matter of time until people really cannot distinguish anymore between real and fake. But this is a real risk about when we make important decisions, especially about life and death, but also business critical ones, right? When is it sabotage? When is it unintentional wrong decisions? And how do we deal with this? And sustainability, of course, because AI is burning a lot of electricity, right? So anything we do, are we overdoing it? Do we have to really apply AI to everything? That is also something to consider, especially thinking about the environment and thinking about global warming, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I think this is what I would love for just leaders and decision makers to think about a little bit more consciously nowadays. I think from there we can derive a lot of better decisions just by thinking about it more.
Good stuff. I mean, we'll touch more about, I guess, the AI um, and that side of things shortly. Let's sort of, I guess, jump more about the life outside of work and the creativity side, because that's
Right.
really interesting. On I guess what you mentioned before. I mean, like you said, music's always been your passion, and
Mm-hmm.
that side is obviously something that you love doing, right? So I guess
Mm-hmm.
from your side, I guess, do you use music as like, I guess, an escape to prevent burnout, or like, I guess, what do you use that side of things for? Is it, yeah, I guess, what's your perspectives on?
Yeah, I mean, multiple ones. I think one of them you mentioned already, right? I think for me, it's almost therapeutic or meditative by making music, especially after a long, stressful day. If I can just focus completely on playing like a long piece of piano, even if it's classical music, and I just have to focus on the complexity of using all the fingers to play that piece of music on the paper, is for me very nice to have. And I think a very nice way to just think about nothing else, right? And just clear my head a little bit. But it's also a creative outlet to make sense of things almost, right? So no matter if I write songs about becoming a father twice, for example, more in personal life, or graduating from high school, this is when one of my early songs, right? Or if it's about making fun about AI using, basically using AI now to help us with our love life, or making fun about all of the struggles as a data engineer, for example. Those are things that I think I'm doing to make a point to, right? About like, look, we're all struggling the same way. And by making it funny and musical, everyone will find an entry to this, right? It's
Yeah, yeah.
understandable in a way. And then people do understand that it's somehow related and that no one of us is alone, but also let's avoid these patterns of mistakes that we're doing, for example, right? So I think this is also a part where I'm expressing myself creatively, but also having a point either business wise or life wise. Yeah, I mean, that's basically it, right? It's artistic expression, but also a way for me to cope and to meditate or
Yeah, yeah.
basically, yeah.
Awesome, awesome. I guess from that point as well, like, just following up, I guess, how important do you think that creativity is in a data driven career?
I think creativity is generally a great skill to have no matter in what profession you are, right? Especially because why I'm saying this is that lots of data people that I talk to, they tell me as feedback that creativity is the part they least resonate with in the book, because they don't think they're creative people, right? That's why they chose to work in data in the first place. But I think that creativity is a muscle that we all have, right? It's just we apply it in different things. And sometimes we forget or we don't know that we can apply it at work as well, right? And that is the part where I think all of us can be creative anytime, because creativity and good ideas is the basis for innovation, right? And innovation is usually a good thing. We just need to give ourselves the space to think of new ideas, apply them, and then turn them into practical outcomes. So in that way, I think it's really a key that we can do it. And even when you work in AI specifically, right? Creativity can happen on so many different levels. Either you think of a dashboard that might be designed differently and might be also a code that you can make optimize a little bit, right? And factorize it. Or it also can be just a new way of communicating with your business stakeholders by learning a bit more about how they work and then using a new way of communication, right? There's so many ways of using creativity to make things better. You just need to dare to do it, right? And
Yeah,
give
yeah.
yourself the space to do it. Yeah,
Understand how to activate it almost
exactly.
from that point of view. Good stuff. I mean, apart from the music side of things, I know you said you've got two kids as well. I guess from yourself, is there any other hobbies? I guess from your side that you enjoy?
I mean, I do some sports, right? I do some badminton, some swimming, for example, as well. I love to play game nights with friends too, right? Like board games, card games, these kind of things. I'm also really into, I would say. Um, so yeah, I don't think that, but I mean, any of the other hobbies that I have are very extreme or anything. I think they're just
Yeah,
like a combination of different things that I enjoy to do. I think music is definitely the one I take the furthest by in how much I involve them in my professional life too. The rest are really just hobbies.
nice. Good stuff. Good stuff. All right, let's I guess move on to um a bit more about sort of the future of I guess data and I guess careers in data because obviously
Hmm.
that's a big part I guess where especially with AI, constantly evolving and that side of things, it's becoming more and more difficult to sort of, I guess, get into the space from a more junior perspective and I guess understanding what angle to approach it in as well. So I guess from your side, where do you see, I guess, the future of data heading and in sort of the next couple years? Like, what's your sort of? I know you said that it's difficult to sort of, I guess, predict where things will go or
Yeah.
what will happen. But I guess where do you things moving or things happening? I guess.
Yeah, I do think that with today's AI capabilities, that a lot of the tedious and repetitive tasks will sooner than later being automated, right? And will be taken care of by AI models and AI agents, et cetera, right? And what that means is that I don't think that the job of a data analyst will die, but that it's going to change and evolve, right? I think what's going to happen is that being in data means it's less doing and more orchestrating and observing and monitoring. It's what's going to happen, right? So, meaning that since AI can do a lot of things, but they cannot be responsible for themselves, right? We still need human responsibility and human accountability, that we are going to have a lot more product owners, translators, orchestrators, all these kind of people that are needed to actually help to make sense in both directions. On the one hand side, what AI is doing to translate to other human beings, but also to translate human requirements into AI requirements to actually do that. And that will happen, I think, on a lot of levels. I think what's going to be important for the next let's say 2 or 3 years for sure is the knowledge layer that is now gaining more traction, right? We're moving away from only tables and structures, right, to also the meaning of those data into information and knowledge, meaning the whole semantics and knowledge graphs and ontologies that we need to apply to actually make sense of it. That's not only making sense to humans but also to machines, I think is a really big thing. And if any space is growing, that's probably the one where people that are interested in data could get into, I feel like, to actually contribute to this new space and evolving space of data.
Nice, awesome. I guess as well from that point of view, I guess what skills would you say are most important now in that data side of things? I guess what if someone was to jump in, I guess what some of the I guess on the tech front, what
Yeah.
would you sort of suggest? I guess some of the things to sort of learn
Yeah.
or sort of develop.
I think, I mean, when it comes to hard skills, SQL and Python are definitely not going to go away. That is for sure, I
Key
think, going to
bases,
stay.
yeah.
Exactly. Then I think some basics and tools that are also transferable. Like if you understand Power BI and Tableau, you're most likely going to deal with any other data visualization tool as well. and also like the typical data engineering kind of aspects of it all, like how an ingestion works or how a data platform works, how to structure warehouses and tables and so on. I think all of these basics are also still very much important. The key, I think, is on the software side is to apply it to different contexts and to different use cases. That's going to be more important because you need to now be more flexible on how you're going to use your skills in the right way, right? And make conscious decisions if you're still implementing it yourself or you're just observing and quality assure what an AI is doing for you or an AI assistant is coding for you, for example, right? I think this is really the important thing. And for the changing and evolving, it's important to never stop learning, right? There's just always continuously more updates in the field. And I don't think we can afford to not be up to date anymore. We just need to know and be consciously, critically looking at what is relevant for us and what isn't.
That's it. That's good. I mean, from your side of view, because you've obviously touched a lot of different fields, would you say it's better to specialize in a field, or try to get as much experience in different areas and see, I guess, where I guess it would take you in that sense?
I think a healthy balance would be good, right? Because, and I think today's industry is both focusing on depth and breadth, right? Because in a way, people appreciate expertise, right? But at the same time, they cannot just keep you doing the one thing, right? They need you to look over the horizon and also understand other things and how it relates to other things. So if we think about the kind of career you have, I think like a V-shaped career would be good, where you're really good at one thing, but you're also pretty good at other things, right? Um, and then having like both the breadth and the depth in it all to actually be able to do that. I know this is harder said than done, easier said than done, sorry, but I think it's important to do that, right? And try our best doing it. Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's just putting yourself out there, I guess, right? And
exactly.
if 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 there's an opportunity to get exposure in an area, do it. Help other people,
Exactly.
and yeah, it can definitely be very, I guess, beneficial in the long term for sure. I mean, for us, I mean, we obviously discussed elements of AI already, and obviously it's a massive part of data, obviously. But I feel like there's a lot of, I guess, hype as well as confusion around it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of, I guess, misconceptions and that side of things. I guess from your point of view, when people talk about, I guess, AI today, what's I guess sort of the biggest sort of misunderstanding about AI, would you say?
Yeah. So I think the biggest misunderstanding, at least that happens to a conversation that I have at work and with clients specifically, is the misconception that AI can fix any foundational issues. Because there's simply no reference to what correct looks like in a specific situation, right? So, as in that you think you need the foundations to do AI, but AI can't fix that foundations, but it doesn't have access to the right foundation in the first place. It itself is a not working cycle, right? Basically. So,
Yeah.
um, just overestimating what AI can do, not because it's not possible of doing it, but it just doesn't have the reference and we don't have the right context for it to do it and fix things, means that we have to create that context first, I think is really the biggest challenge here. And I think when we talk about that almost like platitude, right, to say that AI needs good foundations, foundations are normally not actually technical. Actually, we talk about the human foundations of meaning and context and processes, right? That we actually have to fix. And that's why it takes longer to fix it because it's human stuff. And we just have to actually go through the hard work of doing it. And then we can actually rely on AI to do things for us in a certain way.
Yeah, I think it's just I feel like it's become a common trait where a lot of people are becoming dependent on AI instead of what we discussed earlier, I guess, where it can definitely be an assistance of, I guess, certain tasks or certain processes
Exactly.
to make things easier for sure. So I guess from that, I guess from your perspective and obviously the work that you've been doing and the companies, I guess, you work with, where do you see AI genuinely, I guess, making an impact or actually helping businesses?
Yes, I think that in the coding space, AI assistants are very good already, right? Like this whole AI for software development, I think is really powerful. Like all of these tools like Claude Code and so on are making really good progress on actually being a great productivity help for software development. And I think this is where it's really, really strong there. But I think also it's working now more, it's in productivity for knowledge workers generally as well, right? I think there's more powerful tools like Notebook LLM and so etc. as well that helps you synthesize and summarize things. And you don't have to manually go through all the topics anymore, but you can actually get a pretty good grasp of things and then be much more in the curation and consolidation space instead of trying to manually capture all of the information. And lastly, I think when it comes to, I would say customer service, it's also making better progress, right? Despite all of the failures that we saw in the beginning of when it all started with the hype, right? I think it's getting more and better. And especially for smaller things, even I myself, as a customer who does get AI customer service now with different companies that I work with, I feel like it's much better than before. And they actually do solve my problems faster than having to talk to a human after waiting for a time period to get them on the phone, right? So I think that is also very promising there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's crazy to think how much it's evolved since it all started. I
Yeah,
guess moving. It. I saw a video. It had a comparison from when AI first created like where you can have like an AI generated video compared to now, and honestly,
yeah,
it's breathtaking how different it is, and how I guess quickly it's evolved as well to make it look so
absolutely.
realistic now. And the video,
Yeah.
I still remember it. It was Will Smith
Eating
and
spaghetti, right? I know the one
wasn't
I
it?
did. Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. Honestly, the first
Yeah.
one looked like I don't know, it looked like I made it. But
Yeah.
the second one genuinely looked like he was there. Like
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. It was amazing how
Yeah.
obviously it's changed and how it's actually quite scary, and I guess the depths it can go. But I guess from a more not from a business perspective on AI, but just a normal sort of I guess day to day use. Um, I guess do you see? Obviously, a lot of people use AI just on a normal sort of day to day basis. Um, do you see there's like I guess any ethical issues with AI on that front, and I guess using it for the wrong purposes on a normal day to day basis? Because we always talk about AI with our guests, and obviously it's a big thing with everyone. And a lot of people have different sort of perspectives and that side of things. But um, yeah, it'd be good to understand your thoughts, I guess, on
Yeah,
that.
absolutely. I think there's so many areas that are really gray and difficult, I think, to deal with. I think if we just look at the source of information where AI has been trained with, right? I think we have that big intellectual property debate that has never got properly solved or is still not being solved, right? Of it's learning from obviously material and intellectual property of others who never consented for it to become training material for AI. And now everyone is benefiting from the AI models that have been trained with those to actually do things, right? And it's not clear how that is good or not, right? Especially for me being also someone who creates content and music and stuff, right? I do feel ambiguous about my stuff being just used for training as well, right? And what that means for me. I think the other side of is the whole disinformation and being like intentionally malicious about it, right? Which there's so many ways of being working around it. I think big tech is not making it easier with that whole thing, like with Grok and having all of these problems now recently about creating really unethical content, right? It's so easy now to have models that just help you actually create bad stuff and use it for bad things that I feel like it's more responsibility of technology providers to actually do that in the right way too. And lastly, and that is, I think, the philosophical side of it all, more and more people treat their LLMs as a companion or like a friend or like a confidant or a partner even, right? Often. And for them, it's like almost a mental health topic too, right? Where you get obsessed with your chatbot or you treat it as an actual friend, but it's just imitating being your friend and these kind of things. Where it's really tricky because on the one hand side, it's really helping right now people to feel better about themselves and have some kind of companionship. But then again, it's really not a real human being, right? So it's a little bit like feeling lying to yourself, and it's just a matter of time until that explodes too. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that is really tricky on the ethical side of things. Yeah.
It's crazy. I actually saw a company that they basically they give you an AI girlfriend.
Oh
They are,
no.
yeah, it's gone to
Oh
that level
no.
now. So I guess, yeah, I mean, there's definitely like, I don't know. I guess how you see things, and I guess your perspectives on certain areas, but I guess there is still ethical things there in that sense, because there's still that element of, like you're saying, it's not a real person, right?
Right.
So understanding, I guess, how to use it, and I guess this transitions really well, I guess, to having an understanding the the sort of human-centric approach that I
Yeah.
guess is what a lot of your focus is around, right? In a very sort of I guess IT sort of tech-driven world,
Mhm.
it's very important to have that focus. So I guess, what does human-centric business thinking actually mean to you?
Yeah. I do think that, I mean, in a very much in a nutshell, it means to actually treat colleagues, customers, and leaders and team members all as human beings with individual needs and individual ways of how they need to do things, and taking that seriously, right? And in the book, I introduced that framework of the 5 Cs, which are rooted in what human beings have as traits and as needs anyway, which are competence, collaboration, communication, creativity, and conscience, right? And those 5 things are things that we all human beings have. We just need to address it properly when we talk about data and AI and when we do data and AI initiatives, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that that is really the key. In the end, I always say, doing having a good data strategy that creates a good data culture means 3 elements together, right? It's mindset, skill set, and behavior. So mindset is wanting to do the right thing. A skill set means knowing how to do the right thing, and behavior doing the right thing actually in the right way, right? And once you have that 3 things actually in place, then we can actually do it. And that's actually it takes the human-centric approach, because all 3 things are driven by human beings, right? And this is, I think, what we need to take seriously.
Awesome. I guess, from moving on from that as well, then I guess, how do you balance business goals, technology with, I guess, the human impact? How does the sort of the balance work, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, on the one hand side, they're connected, right? I think the more motivated your workforce is, and the more they want to help achieve business goals by knowing what they are and knowing how technology supports it, the more it works on its own and just becomes the catalyst of more human beings actually being motivated to do the right thing. On the other hand side, it can sometimes be contradicting, right? Where, for example, typically you want to be more efficient, and the answer to that question is laying people off. Right. So especially in times of AI, a lot of people then feel like, oh, they're not saying it, but I think they want to lay me off. That's why I'm not going to support this. I might even silently sabotage this initiative because it's going to hurt my career. So that kind of thinking, right, is, I think, where it gets difficult, because it's now actually on opposite sides, and it's actually kind of a conflict of interest there. But this is exactly what needs to be addressed, right? Of being proactive and transparent and keeping the human beings in mind of how to communicate and how to collaborate.
Awesome. I mean, you've been obviously in the tech space for a very long time, right? And I guess you've experienced a lot of examples from I guess situations like from, from a human centric point of view. So I guess, can you share any examples of where human centric thinking changed an outcome?
Absolutely. I think, I mean, one typical thing in data governance, for example, is that you talk about how the data creators and the data consumers are not very well aligned. So, for example, there's a product manager that creates product data for the first time in the system, right? And somewhere at the other side of that data flow, there's a data scientist who uses that data to actually make kind of a predictive modeling, right, out of it. And often, what happens is that the product manager does it because they want to sell product, right? But the data scientist has very different requirements and much more granular requirements towards it than that. So often the data governance person becomes the middle messenger and just gets information from there, talks to the other person, and then takes information from there, talks to the other person again. But that usually very rarely works out, and the messenger usually gets shot by being blamed for everything right in the middle. So I think what I learned as a human-centric approach is learning that the two sides are not understanding because they never seen each other. So they cannot see the other side as human beings that are struggling. They only see like that side of data production that I don't understand. Why is it not working for me? So basically, I started bringing those people together, right, into literally the same room and let them face each other and learn that they're human beings actually on both sides that are not understanding each other. And suddenly, right, all of the resistance became much smaller and they started being much more polite and talking to each other and trying to understand each other. So that was a very simple one, but it was just so easy to fall into these patterns of being the messenger and creating ticket systems and email chains instead of just letting them see each other and finally talk, that I learned about the human side of it, for example, how impactful that can be.
I think it's very easy to overcomplicate a simple situation, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah,
Especially
exactly.
on that. Keep it simple. Don't overthink it, especially when there's so much to think about already in that sense. I guess from that point of view as well, then what's one small change I guess you would ask leaders, I guess, to change tomorrow to move into, I guess, a direction where a human-centric approach is more sort of used, I guess.
I think if they could look into their collaboration problems, and I'm sure any team has collaboration problems, right? Any organization, and just think of how instead of just complaining about it and take it and accept it, think about how you could where it comes from, that problem, and try to use a human-centric approach to bridge that collaboration, right? Maybe it requires just like a deeper understanding of each other and talking some honest words about what drives each other and what they won't. Or maybe it's a misunderstanding sometimes too, right? Where you use the same words but you mean different things, and actually that's why everything is misaligned. I think just going one step deeper and trying to understand why there's an issue here in the collaboration can really help. And the impact is huge, right? Once you actually solved it and you want to collaborate, suddenly everything feels easier. So I think this is the part where people can get started.
Awesome. Awesome. That's really good. I mean, again, you shared some really good insights into a lot of you'd like to say, I guess, simple problems in that sense, but they're not, are they? Because it's very
Mhm.
overlooked, and people still don't understand, I guess, that
Yeah.
how to do things or how to approach things in that way. Because I guess, like we discussed already, from that AI and especially on the data front, like there's so many new things, so many there's things to learn, I guess, and it's best to not overcomplicate something that doesn't need to be overcomplicated, right?
Hmm.
In simple terms, is literally that. I guess from your point of view, I mean, you've talked a lot about, I guess, learning and experimenting because you have to.
Hmm.
Um, I guess from your perspective, I guess why do you see it as, I guess, so important in the industry?
Yeah, I mean, so I think because a knowledge can very easily now be communicated and transferred using AI because it has access to so much information, that it actually just the hard knowledge itself will be on record somewhere. But the skill of learning itself and being able to adapt because of what you learned is something that is deeply human that we need, because we need to adapt to the world of technology, evolution into evolving also our humanity of how we are playing the right part in it and how we stay on top of everything, for example, right? And also then that, yeah, basically experimentation itself means that we don't just theoretically think about things, but we actually turn that into outcomes. Means it's always easy to learn in theory, but once you apply it in practice, you realize what it actually means. And that is something also where I think we cannot afford to not do it, right? In the end, every one of us is just theorists, and none of us actually know how we're practically doing things. And that's why the learning and the experimentation is both important.
Awesome, awesome. All right, we're going to move on now. Like I mentioned to you before, so we're going to do a lightning round.
Hmm.
Okay, so it's whatever comes, I guess, to your head, and
Right.
we'll just, I guess, learn a little bit more about yourself and understand, I guess, what you enjoy and what you do. Right. So
Sure.
first one is coffee or tea.
Coffee.
One book everyone in data should read.
Oh.
You can say your own book.
Humanizing data strategy. That's a good one. No, but I had just one in mind. I just forgot the name. But let's go with humanizing data strategy.
One skill you think is underrated in tech.
Active listening.
Nice. Favorite way to learn: reading, building, or teaching?
Teaching.
Music whilst working, yes or no?
Yes, absolutely. Even different ones for different tasks. So yeah.
Nice. One word for the future of data.
Bright.
Yes,
Yeah.
nice. Good stuff. That's the lightning round.
Yeah. Okay.
Put you under
Cool.
pressure. Awesome. And I guess before we wrap things up, what's what's the one idea I guess you hope for the listeners to take away from this conversation? What do you want people to take from this?
I think for listeners to be just attuned to the human side of themselves, right? We are indeed not machines in the end, right? So what makes us human is, I think, what makes us unique. So try to reflect on that and apply it to your job and your career as much as you can, because that's what's gonna be your USP.
Awesome. And I guess just for those that again are trying to get into data and AI, what's the best first step I guess to take for them to jump into it
I
and
think being a data analyst is always a good entry because it starts with being heavily business facing. And especially if you come from a business function before, then you know that there are certain data things that you can work on and that are important to you. So if you look at it from a data analyst side, then that's the perfect entry point into understanding how data works. And then from there, you can expand it to different areas.
awesome. And I guess where can people find yourself and I guess your books and everything from that point of view?
Yeah, so feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. My books are on Amazon, but also lots of regional online bookstores. So just have a look where you can find it and whatever you feel comfortable with ordering where from. Um, and yeah, I do have a YouTube channel too with my music stuff that people can enjoy that I mentioned before. Those would be it.
Awesome. We will definitely include all the links when we post this, so everyone can stay connected and also listen to all the good music that you've created.
Mhm.
But yeah, like I mentioned to yourself, so the way we finish the podcast is we ask the previous guest to
Mhm.
ask a question for yourself, and then you ask a question for the next guest as well. So the question from the previous guest was describe yourself in 3 words.
Mhm.
Always a tricky one.
Yeah. I think my words would be in the spirit of this episode too. Human, optimistic, and non-conforming, a non-conformist, I think would be the word. Yes.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Good stuff. And then your question for the next guest?
Question with that guess would be, what is one advice that any mentor or leader or boss from your past gave you that is very much top of mind for you still every day?
Nice. Nice. Good stuff. Look, it was great to have you on this podcast.
Thank you
And
very much.
yeah, thank you for coming in.
Awesome.
There you go.